to the 80% Catholic in the Philippines, and to all the claimants. This letter of Pope Benedictus and Pope Franciscus serve as the clearance and authority of 777 Morning Star, the only sole signatory of the divine wealth, accounts, and assets. To all the claimants and transactionists, listen. Without the nod of Vatican, all your claims are useless. Even you are holding a original document, I advise you better surrender it to the Morning Star to make it money.
And those people who pray that please, 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 whoever you are, my dear friend, please come up now. So, here is your friend, a Filipino. To my countrymen, to the Board of Trustees, officers, and members, and those people who directly listening to me now, as promised in the Juris TV, that we will divulge the secret of the lost caste and gold of the Maharlikas. The Filipino people have the right to know. In accordance of Article 6, Section 6 of the Philippine Constitution, the right of the people to the information on matters of public concern shall be recognized. Access to the official record and document pertaining to the official transaction or decision shall be afforded the citizen subject to such limitation and be provided by law. So, via Juris TV is more as we are. We will tell you the secret of the lost caste and gold. Just remember about the fighting faith to Mr. Marcos. He says, it is stated like this: it is strange for a man to know in order to know how much you know, the little you know. So there are a lot of people transacting in hotels and restaurants in major cities and municipalities all around the Philippine archipelago who pretend to know. This is the darkest nights when everybody pretend to be real. But in truth of the matter is, only the members of those Marcos Boy, or what we call the L50, the labor group, are the one who really know. Since your brother is the one left, so as promised to the Juris TV that we have to come out now. History relates that the Japanese war booty was successfully shifted to Tokyo after the first route of General Tomoyuki Yamashita. from Singapore to Mongolia, and the rest kept in the Philippines after being buried in 172 carefully selected sites within the Philippine archipelago prior to 1945. It was largely made up of gold bars, assorted jewelries, and Roman religious artifacts seized from the ship of General Percival and the defeated British forces of Malaysia and Singapore, and carefully transferred all these to the ship Maharlika. Japan entered the game of war not simply to win, but to hoard wealth for the Bansai Nippon. The first shipload of war booty entered Japan from different points with the list of countries including even Manchuria. When General Kodama and General Yamamoto needed reinforcement, Yamashita, then operating under direct order from the Emperor, was assigned to secure the loot taken from the warship of General Percival of British forces. This imperial patronage eventually made Yamashita the subject of envy by the peers in the Japanese imperial force, including Japanese Field Marshal Heihachi Tiralichi. The loot, incidentally, was not only in gold bars, but was also an assortment of jewelries, golden religious artifacts, and icons such as gold statues of Buddha and Roman Catholic saints. The second shipload of war booty, instead of being immediately brought to Japan, were then stashed in different places in Luzon. That was why during the Japanese time in 1945, the perukere, meaning railroad track, had to run from Ascaraga, now Recto, and Antonio Rivera, then continued up north to La Union, and then down south again to Camarines Sur. Yamashita fought his last battle in the areas running from Carvalho Mountain up to Benguet and Ipugao. When the Americans bombarded Japan, the Japanese warship changed the route and instead made a side trip to the Philippine Islands with the intention of hiding the route. This made General Douglas MacArthur return even more inevitable. This was also the reason why the Japanese, before the end of the war, wanted to make the Philippines one of their perpetrators for the Asia Coast co-prosperity sphere. According to MacArthur, if you remember, I shall return when the war took turn in favor of the United States in May 1942. After the U.S. Navy destroyed the Japanese fleet at the Battle of Midway, MacArthur forces began a mighty push to the north, leapfrogging from Guam, Saipan, Taiwan, and other atolls. By early 1944, U.S. military strategies began to ponder the next major target, Taiwan. The plan called for circumventing the Philippines in order to move closer to Japan. Conventional wisdom tells us that MacArthur disapprovement of the plan, warning that the bypass the archipelago would incur an open hostility of the Filipinos and damage American image throughout Asia. President Roosevelt went to Hawaii in July 1944 to compare with MacArthur and Admiral Nimitz so as to resolve the issue. But once more, Roosevelt referred the matter to the Joint Chief of Staff. They finally approved MacArthur plan to land in Leyte, forgetting about the Taiwan option. After having been informed that the gold bullion was being hoarded by General Yamasita, the Tiger of Malaya, when the American forces entered Manila and discovered that the gold bullion had been successfully shipped to Japan, they hung Yamasita in Los Baños, Laguna for his war crime and for his alleged role in the devastation of Manila, despite the fact that he bore the responsibility for the catalysm, having ruled from the start against defending the capital. It was Admiral Iwabuchi and his 20,000 naval troops armed with automatic weapons who remarked an orgy of atrocities, impaling babies on bayonet, raping women, and beheading the men. Eventually, on the trial, Yamasita accepted the verdict, only saying, "I am not ashamed before God for what I've done when I have to die. But if you say to me, you do not have the ability to command a Japanese army, I should say nothing because it's only my own nature. I know that all your American military officers have been very tolerant and exercised rightful judgment when I had a good treatment, kind attitude from your good-natured officers who all the time protected me and never forget what they have done for me. Even if I die, I don't blame my executioner. I pray to God to bless them. In fairness to Yamasita, are these the word of a thief and a plunderer?" Yamasita was not only a brave officer, he also upright and honest and would never think of holding someone else's treasure or gold. When he took command of Nippon forces in the last day's effort to defend the Cordillera, Yamasita had no time gathering gold bullion or any kind of treasure. It is completely unfair, therefore, to link Yamasita to any treasure in gold bullion. Despite the clear fact that Yamashita was a victim of judicial lynching. He never lost his composure. One of his prosecutors reportedly told Yamashita Chief Defense Counsel Frank E. Real, "Damn it! It makes me mad seeing him dead out in uniform. He still dominates the council room. If I had my way, I put him in prison overall unchecked." After the death of Lieutenant General Tomoyuki Yamashita, stories about his secretly possessing one of the greatest treasure of all time. This quickly spread like wildfire. In 1953, President Elpidio Quirino announced that he would release some Japanese soldiers who were still imprisoned in the Philippines for war crimes in exchange for Tokyo cooperation in an official proof to determine once and for all whether Yamashita had indeed left behind billions of dollars worth of treasure. The inquiry was to be headed by American of Japanese descent Minori Okunutsu, who worked as one of the investigators of the Allied war crime. Tribunal. Before leaving the Philippines, he said that no single evidence was found to show that the treasure has ever existed. MacArthur's ballyhooed return was nothing more than salvaging operation. The Americans were more interested in Yamashita treasure than the liberation of the Philippines. I repeat, the Americans are more interested of Yamashita treasure rather than the liberation of the Philippines. Do I need to repeat it again? If the so-called Yamashita treasure is true, how come no Japanese authority, no Japanese officers, no survivor of that Japanese Imperial Army, no ghost stepping bullets of Yamashita has ever stepped forward and authenticate the story? How come no witness, whether Japanese or Filipino, Mangyan, Igorot, Baluga, ever to tell the tale why they were all massacred? How come not one of the Southeast Asian countries supposedly looted by Yamashita of their gold holdings ever come out in open after the Second World War to protest and seek reparation? Clearly, the catchphrase Yamashita treasure was a coinage like Colgate. It's like many Filipinos would generally call any brand of toothpaste. Thus, it should not be misconstrued as anything outside the fact that it's mainly the war booty supposed transported by the Japanese at the height of Second World War is all come from the Vatican. All those go come from the Vatican. In April 1, 1945, about 10 o'clock in the evening, U.S. Commander Charles Douglas of the submarine Queen Peace sighted the Japanese destroyer, the Awa Maru, and immediately ordered his crew to fire on the enemy ship. For torpedoes found their mark, according to the ill-fated ship lone survivor, a steward, the vessel that sank was a hospital ship, painted with huge white crosses which have been guaranteed safe passage by the United States. Its mission asked to delivery of Red Cross package to Allied prisoners of war in Hong Kong, Saigon, Singapore, and other areas, and then to pick up wounded Japanese soldiers and bring them back to Japan. The vessels which sailed 14 miles off the Chinese mainland was on a return trip to Japan when blasted by Lungling men. After it was discovered that the ship carried with an inventory of 40 tons of gold, 12 tons of platinum, 2,000 tons of tungsten, 3,000 tons of brass and bronzes, 2 tons of quicksilver, about 150,000 carats of diamond, 40 cases of jewelry, and numerous crates of art, and plundered by the Japanese occupation forces. The Awa Maru was the only treasure ship. It was found in La Union. That's the reason why the Wallace Airways the Voice of America was in that corner of San Fernando, La Union. That's the reason why the central bank is in San Fernando, La Union. That's the reason why there is a unity of many provinces, La Union. Part of that La Union is part of Pangasinan before. Pangasinan had to contribute to San Juan, La Union. Ilocos have to contribute also, Benguet and Ilocos. That's the reason why it was called Union. But, of course, if you are interested, click in the Juris TV. In 1955, another joint operation by the Philippines and Japanese government was started. The maritime project called for the salvaging is about 269 Japanese vessels sunk during the war. About 124 vessels were located in Manila Bay, while the rest were spotted in other parts of the country. As soon as the salvaging operation began, rumors began to spread that the vessels were filled with gold bullion and were deliberately shuttled for future retrieval. None of those mongers were ever substantiated, Undoubtedly, the rumors mongers were inspired by little known story of ill-fated Japanese ship Awa Maru. This could also have been the reason why Tokunotsu, whenever the question of the treasure existed come up, would refute the possibility of messianic seal. The less people knew about the treasure existence is the strength for a man to know. In order to know how much he knows, that little he knows. This is good for you, transactor in Manila. Go home and plant kamuti. Rather than dreamings, the truth will set you free. The circuitous route of Yamashita treasures was all the while part of Emperor Hirohito's grand scheme to confuse and through the Illuminati, the American and European bankers of trust. Little had they known that much of the war booty was kept in the Philippines all the way. All those booty war booty was in the Philippines. All the treasures of the Vatican was in the Philippines. The Illuminati, so that you understand, is a secret society and established in Ingolstadt, Bavaria, by ex-Jesuit Adams Windsor on May 1, 1776. Translated literally, the order, which means the enlightened one, whose above objectives is a world dominion. Do you want to hold everybody? Now, known as Trilateral Commission, to denote the joint effort of Zionist bankers from Europe, the United States, and Japan. The roster of the Illuminati includes members of Bilderberg, a big European business group allied with the Trilateral Commission, and the equally powerful New York-based Council on Foreign Relations is the who decide who will be allowed to run for the office of the President. Prime Ministers, Chancellors, Governor General, and all other titles for the leaders of all major countries around the world. Since they own the major banks and the central banks, they know exactly what interest rates and money supply level would be, and it's highly likely that they regularly run this exchange up and down for their financial gain. They also directly and indirectly own all the major news media and can therefore tell the public exactly what they want to be read and deny the public the information they do not want to be known. Directly or indirectly, they also own major businesses and industries, enable them to suppress wages and salaries by either shipping the production job to countries with the cheapest labor rates, by importing technical specialists from the cheapest country around the world, or by employing mostly temporary or part-time workers in their home countries the labor union does not resist such effort because the labor leaders are members of the elite as well. The Latin phrase for Illuminati, with the aim of establishing one-world government, which they called this government. The Novus Ordo Seclorum, which means men, new age or new order, is printed on the reverse side of $1 bill together with the year 1776 in Roman numeral at the bottom of the Masonic pyramid. On top of the pyramid is the eye of the Lucifer with the inscription of Annuit Coetus, which means he, Lucifer, has smiled on our undertaking. Most persons believe that the year 1776 honor of the birth of the U.S. No, its honor wins for Antichrist and one word for Satan. You can see this in $1 bill in American dollar. Clearly, the Japanese succeeded in shipping everything that was looted to Japan. It was to be Tokyo's solid investment and contribution to all powerful rulers of the world, the Illuminati, which helped transform Japan into super power despite of humiliating defeat in the hands of Allied forces. So ang nabayaran, yung natalo, ang nagbayad, ang nanalo. After Japan surrender, Emperor Hirohito threw the Kumoraku, a Japanese term for a concordat, negotiated with the Illuminati for a loan to save his fatherland from the total oblivion. Japan was given the nod on its investment loan and was requested a technology transfer by the Americans on the condition that the war loot be made collateral. Later, the Japanese government used a big chunk of it as an investment loan to the Illuminati in exchange for Anglo-Saxon technology, which was badly needed to rebuild the savage of war in the land of the rising sun. Japan progressed and become industrial countries only after few years. And eventually, Japanese big business and bankers merged with the Illuminati, giving birth to the Trilateral Commission. The tales about the huge treasure reportedly given by usurpee Major Ferdinand E. Marcos during the dark days of the Second World War, which became the basis of his fortunes, are nothing more or less a cleverly concocted diversionary tactics plotted by the brilliant Marcos himself, a smoke screen to confuse the riders of the lost cash and gold, so that none of them would know exactly where the lost volume is deposited. My president is clearly a total genius. The tale was obvious. Obviously, diversionary techniques of the gold bullion by Marcos in order to throw off any lead on the truth behind the treasure. This was according to General Inouyuki Kamanut, Saki turned Filipinos, using the name Binaventura Ramil Albano of Solano, Nueva Vizcaya. who was then the head of the 121 Division of Japanese Imperial Army. Hideyoki was one of the ordinary original Japanese sleepers or a spy who took cover as a lowly merchant before he eventually became one of the original trustee of the Marcos wealth. Inoue is still alive now, will be in his mid-90s. Two of his children are communists serving as APA commanders as so as to protect the assets. They call themselves APA or Marcos People's Army, not MPA. I have to clear that. They insisted that Marcos' work must never be believed by anyone. There was never anybody like a very brilliant and clever Ferdinand, my president, Marcos, when it comes to inventing something out of the whole gold. Yes, there is gold. There is Marcos gold. And plenty of it, piled up and locked backbone, known only to the high hemphead of Credit Suisse and other Swiss banks, because the bank secret law is authored by my president, Ferdinand Eberlin Marcos.
DJ